Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today to discover the investment opportunity at Embassy Gardens. Savills Singapore is proud to present this collaboration with EcoWorld Ballymore. We are also proud to invite Zonglun Law Firm to be part of this webinar. Since this webinar is a joint collaboration, we are super excited to see people logging in from not just Singapore, but also Malaysia and some from even as far away as the UK. So without further ado, let us officially get this webinar going. Let me introduce myself. I am Rachel Ho from the Residential Services team of Savills Singapore, and I will be your humble host for today. If you don't already know, Savills is a global real estate company that is listed on the London Stock Exchange. Our vast international network allows us as a real estate service provider to offer advisory, management, and transaction services. So let us now invite Gabby Ford, Research Analysis of Savills UK, to come on board and share with us some of the reasons why London remains an attractive place to consider in terms of property investment.
So, of course, recently London has seen challenges in Brexit and, of course, the pandemic, but the future is looking a lot brighter. The UK has signed a trade deal with Japan that brings together two of the world's most technologically advanced nations that will provide an estimated $15 billion boost to trade. As part of this deal, the UK will be supported in joining the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which covers 13% of the global economy and accounted for over £110 billion in trade in 2019. Further trade deals are being discussed, and the UK's GDP is forecast to grow by over 7% this year and by over 6% next year, which is one of the fastest recoveries expected across the globe. Fears of significant job losses in the wake of Brexit haven't materialised. Doubts of London's ability to attract the biggest names to its office market have been unfounded, with Google signing for a new £1 billion office in King's Cross for over 4,000 employees. Major tech firms Netflix and TikTok have also signed leases for new headquarters in London within the last year. And of course, Apple will be opening its new London campus at Battersea Power Station in Nine Elms this year. London has remained second in the rankings of the 2021 Global Financial Centres Index, behind only New York, and 7 places ahead of the next European city, maintaining its strong reputation of a global financial centre. The UK has been one of the leading nations in the rollout of the vaccine and has relaxed social distancing measures. This provides real optimism that the return of central London's famous city buzz does lie just around the corner, and it won't be long until we see the return of tourism that is so important to London. Of course, some aspects of life will have changed forever, most notably a new hybrid way of working from home and the office. As a result, being close to a park or green space is more important than ever. Almost half of London's space is green, with over 3,000 parks that make London the world's first national park city in 2019. In comparison, it's estimated that only 27% of New York is green space and less than 10% of Paris. And finally, London has held the reputation of being a safe haven for property investment for many years. Brexit and the COVID-19 pandemic, whilst providing short-term hurdles to overcome, have done nothing to change London's standing as a safe long-term investment. The city's global reputation and the key fundamentals provide long-term stability at a time where the future of other global markets remain uncertain. And that can be seen in the fact that London is Europe's leading global tech city. So $10.5 billion in venture capital funding was raised in London in 2020, despite a backdrop of a global pandemic and Brexit. This was only 2% below the figure for 2019, and no other European city is represented in the top 10 for venture capital investment since 2016. And London is the second fastest growing tech ecosystem in the world since that point, having seen investment triple over the last 5 years. So there are signs that venture capital is moving out of Silicon Valley and into London, with more than a third of last year's funding coming from North America. This strength can also be seen in the number of unicorns, which are privately owned tech companies valued at over $1 billion, and future unicorns, which are tech companies valued between $250 million and $1 billion. There are over 120 of these tech companies in London, almost 3 times as many as the next city in Europe. And London still comfortably leads the way in terms of cross-border investment too. So London saw $13.6 billion of cross-border investment in the year to Q1 of this year. That's 44% more than the next highest, which was Paris. Whilst other European cities such as Paris, Amsterdam and Berlin have seen significant falls in investment volumes of 51%, 42% and 45% respectively, London's slight drop of just 10% highlights its resilience and the confidence that investors have in it. Another reason why people continue to invest in London is its outstanding educational offering. There are 4 universities in London that are ranked in the top 50 in the QS World University Rankings. No other city in the world can boast more than this. So Imperial College London, UCL, King's College London and LSE make up the top London universities. And not only does this act as a significant draw for overseas students to study in the capital, but also provides a world-class pool of student graduates for London businesses that cannot be matched in any other city. International students have certainly not been put off by the disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The number of international UCAS applicants from outside of the EU has reached record levels in 2021, with over 85,000 applicants, increasing by 17% compared to 2020. Applicants from China in particular have seen a significant increase of 21%. London has been able to continuously attract overseas students with its offering of world-leading education, famous city buzz and nightlife, and its multicultural population. Looking now at property, the prime London market does offer real value after seeing subdued growth for a number of years due to tax changes and political uncertainty from Brexit. So prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, prime London's residential markets had begun to see a recovery in prices as a decisive outcome in the December 2019 general election led to significantly improved buyer confidence. This resulted in the first quarter of positive annual price growth in prime London for 3 years. However, COVID-19 did see the return of uncertainty, and the closing of the housing market led to values falling by 1% between March and June of 2020. However, since then, the market has slowly recovered again, with values currently 1.7% higher than in June 2020. This suggests the market has now bottomed out. And the combination of price falls in prime London since 2016 and the depreciation of the pound sterling represents significant discounts to be had for those buying in overseas currency. So for those purchasing a £1 million prime London property in Chinese yuan or US dollars, they will currently pay approximately 12% less than before the EU referendum in 2016, whilst those purchasing in euros will see an 18% discount. And finally, London remains very competitive to invest in from a tax point of view. So a $2 million US property in London for overseas buyers remains very competitive on the global stage when the costs of purchasing, holding for 5 years, and then selling the property are considered. So despite the 2% surcharge for stamp duty on non-domiciled buyers being introduced in April this year, London's ranking on the global stage in terms of buying, holding and selling does remain competitive. So it remains less expensive than Hong Kong, Singapore, New York and many other cities. And with the stamp duty holiday being extended, it will remain less expensive than Paris until the 1st of October 2021. So looking forward, we expect to see strong growth across both the prime London sales and rental markets. Both markets have been subdued for a number of years, but appear to now be starting their recovery. That means there is significant value to be found currently, especially if buying in a different currency. We expect that the fast rollout of the vaccines across the UK and the easing of lockdown will lead to increased confidence from buyers. And we expect this will lead to particularly strong growth in 2022, once international buyers are able to return to London with the easing of travel restrictions. After that, we expect the market to return to trend level growth with a strong capital value forecast of between 16 and 20% across London over the next 5 years. So now to look in a bit more detail about some of the reasons why now is a good time to invest in Nine Elms in southwest London. Nine Elms is the largest regeneration area in London and is the last part of the south bank of the Thames to be transformed. So this is a one-off opportunity. It will be London's newest residential and business district, providing 20,000 new homes and 25,000 jobs. The area is 227 hectares. That's larger than Hyde Park and also Monaco. Our research has found that London regeneration areas can command about a 20% price premium above the local market. Regeneration is key in transforming areas, and this premium is often driven by key placemaking initiatives which focus on improvement. And these are all initiatives which are being seen at Nine Elms. So this includes the likes of green spaces, like with the Linear Park, health and sport facilities, retaining heritage and local character with Battersea Power Station, high quality restaurants, bars and cafes, connecting the community through community events, and finally, improving public transport in the area. So one major transformation at Nine Elms will be through transport improvements, with £1 billion being spent on this. This will include the Northern Line extension to Nine Elms and Battersea Power Station, which will be included in Zone 1, making travel into central London cheaper, and will open this year. This will really open the area up for better connectivity, and people will be able to travel into the city or the West End, so areas like Bond Street, in just 15 minutes. And plans to build a pedestrian bridge between Nine Elms and Pimlico on the north bank of the Thames will also improve connectivity. So even though Nine Elms is currently well connected and you can easily walk to major landmarks such as Westminster Abbey and Buckingham Palace in around 40 minutes, once the footbridge opens, it will reduce this time by around 30 to 50%. The new bridge will also meet increasing demand for high quality, safe and clean infrastructure, and will provide a safe and vital connection between Nine Elms and the rest of central London. The opening of the Northern Line extension and the footbridge will also improve connectivity from Nine Elms to some of the world's top universities, such as King's College, University College, London School of Economics and Imperial College. So currently, these can all be reached within about half an hour or less, meaning that Nine Elms is already a popular choice to students. And the popularity of London as a place to study continues to grow, with every university listed here having seen an increase in the number of international students taking places over the last 2 years. Another really important feature for regeneration areas are a focus on health and well-being through access to green space. At Nine Elms, you can see here, there will be a network of parks, public squares, footpaths, cycle lanes, sports pitches, outdoor shopping areas, and a variety of outdoor recreational spaces. The major point will be the Linear Park, which is 12 acres and stretches all the way from Vauxhall in the north of Nine Elms to Battersea Power Station in the south. And we found that green space is becoming increasingly important to people following the lockdown from COVID-19. So when we asked our buyers, 62% said that the amount of green space or outdoor space had become more important to them. This increased for those living in London, those with young children, and 80% of those under 40 said this was more important to them. Another key piece of regeneration at Nine Elms will be connecting the community. There are currently 20 bars and restaurants with over 100 shops and restaurants at Battersea Power Station. There will be 18 public galleries and open space for public art, and 24 cultural venues which are currently hosting festivals in the area, such as the Heritage Festival and the Happy Streets Festival, which is a free festival including live music and activities for children. And these are all going to combine to make Nine Elms a vibrant new place in London for people to meet. And when you look at how the area has performed, Wandsworth is a strong residential market to invest in. So looking long term, it has seen very strong price growth. Prices are currently 69% higher than before the global financial crisis and have risen quicker than the average for London and far above the average for England and Wales. And even recently, Wandsworth has continued to see strong house price growth. So prices have increased by 5% over the last year, again, higher than the average for London. So bearing that in mind, who is moving to live in Nine Elms? Well, there is a real mixture of people buying, but also renting in the area, which makes it an attractive place to invest in, as 38% of all households moving there in the last 2 years have moved into private rented homes. This is much higher than the average across London. If you look at Experian data, which categorises people by affluence, there are two standout types of people moving to Nine Elms. The first is city prosperity, who tend to be high-earning young professionals who may be renting or buying and are looking for expensive homes in central locations. And the second is rental hubs, who are renters in their 20s and 30s, starting out in their careers and looking for areas with good transport links to central London's. And you can see this when looking at the demographics of who has moved to Nine Elms. So the area really attracts younger people, with 45% aged under 40. Almost half of households are singles or couples, and a further 41% of households are adult sharers. And almost a quarter of households earn over £100,000. So the area does really attract wealthy young professionals. And finally, it's interesting to see Nine Elms really start to come together as a regeneration area. So more than half of the projects in the area are now finished or on site. Just in 2020 alone, there were over 800 homes which completed construction and over 600 sales in Nine Elms. And looking forward, we expect the market to continue to see strong growth, with a forecast of around 15% price growth by 2025.
Thank you very much, Gabby. That was really very insightful. Let me now hand over to Cherry Huang, solicitor from Zhonglun Law Firm, to highlight to us what we need to know in terms of the legalities when buying a UK property.
大家好，我是中伦律师事务所伦敦办公室的黄律师 Cherry。那今天很荣幸受到 EcoWord 和 Savills 的邀请，来到这里为大家做一个关于英国购房置业简介的讲座。那我们的讲座呢，一共分为3个部分。第一个部分且最重要的部分，那就是英国购房的流程的介绍。那第二个部分呢，就是关于英国房产的税务介绍。那第3个部分呢，就是您作为买家在英国购房中需要注意的事项及律师在整个购房流程中起到的作用。英国房产呢，一般分为2种产权，一种呢是永久产权，一种是租赁产权。那永久产权呢，一般是连地一起购买的永久性产权，常见于别墅。那买家呢的产权的权利和义务主要来自于土地。那另一种呢是租赁产权，那常见于公寓，那一般租赁的期限为125年、250年及999年不等。那买家主要的产权的权利及义务呢，来自于我们交房的时候需要签署的一份租赁契约文件。那在交房后呢，买家一般呢需要交纳一定的物业管理费及地租。那从律师的角度来讲呢，其实2个产权最大的不一样就是来自于不同的权利及义务了。在英国购房中，第一步就是预定房产了。那在您选择好心仪的房产及跟开发商和中介商量好价格及其他条件之后，就可以开始签署预订单并支付预定金。那预订单中呢，一般有买家的基本个人信息、房屋的基本信息及也需要填写买家律师的一个联系方式。因此，在这一步上，您就需要开始委托律师了。那您的律师呢，也会同时出具您的律所的委托文件及服务条款明细供您审阅。与此同时，您也需要开始准备反洗钱材料了。 那其实反洗钱材料呢是在英国比较特有的一件事情，那就是因为根据英国的反洗钱条例，那所有律师呢必须要对买家的身份进行核实，还有买家购房的资金来源的合法性进行确认，以避免不法分子在英国通过购置房产来洗黑钱。那一般呢，反洗钱文件分为3个部分。第一个部分呢是身份证明文件，那这一般需要护照或者其他有您名字、照片等其他基本信息的一些身份证明文件。那第二部分呢就是地址证明，那地址证明呢一般需要银行账单或者水电煤气账单，那这些账单中呢需要有您的名字、地址，也需要有日期，那日期呢只要是近3个月内的日期就可以了。那第3个部分呢就是资金来源证明，那资金来源证明呢一般是需要您3个月的银行账单来确认您有一定的款项去支付这次购房款，那另外呢也能看到您的来源，那如果是存款的话或薪金存款，那我们会一般要求需要您的名片或者在职证明等来证明买家有一个合法的收入。那英国购房流程中第2步就是为交换合同前做准备了。那除了我刚刚提到的一些反洗钱材料和文件之外，那您的律师呢也会针对您的这些反洗钱材料做出审查。那同时呢也会针对您购买的房产、这个楼盘及开发商的产权、资质、建筑许可等等做出调查。那在调查结束之后呢，您的律师一般会给您发一个报告。那这个报告一般会连同这个购房合同、图纸等等的一起通过电子邮件发送给您。那您审阅好之后，没有问题之后就可以签署文件了。那把这些文件都签署好之后，就可以把原件快递回给您的律师。那另外交换合同前还需要的准备当然是款项了。那一般来说，根据预订单，一般开发商会要求您支付10%左右的首付款作为定金。那这些东西都和材料、文件、款项都准备好之后，那就可以指示您的律师为您交换合同。那一般这个期限为21天，您需要在21天之内完成交换合同。那第3步交换合同的当天，那是由买卖双方的律师进行的，那您买家是不需要在现场的。那买卖双方的律师呢会确认所有合同文件的所有事宜都是一致的，那就可以填上日期和信息，还有相关律师的签字等等。那这些都填上之后，那这个合同就正式生效了。那生效后，那这个合同就绑定了买卖双方，那买卖双方都需要按照这个合同条款去履行责任及义务。那在交换好合同之后，您的律师也会为您的合同在土地局上注册，以保护您的利益。在购房流程中的第4步当然是为交房做出准备了。那交房前做的准备最重要的当然是资金。那我们建议您尽快通知您的律师，您打算现金交房还是贷款交房。那您的律师会根据这个情况，您的个人情况，为您出具一个预估的交房资金明细。那您就可以根据这个明细来准备相应的款项了。另外呢，在交房呢也有一定的法律文件的准备的。那首先第一个呢就是需要更新您的资金来源材料。因为在英国反洗钱调查也是需要一直更新的，所以您需要准备近3个月或者近6个月的银行账单流水，来证明您这个支付房款尾款的一个资金的合法性。那第2部分呢，就是也会有一定的文件需要您签字。那跟之前一样，那您的律师呢会把租赁契约及图纸等文件通过电子邮件的方式发送给您。那您审阅好之后呢，就可以打印出来签字，并寄回给您的律师。那另外，如果您有贷款的话，贷款银行一般会要求您做一个更新的近3个月的调查。那其实一般在交换合同前，开发商律师已经把一个调查报告提供过给您的买家律师，您的律师了。那因为出于风险控制的因素，那有的贷款银行呢都会要求买家购买一个近3个月的更新的调查报告。那这个调查报告呢一般分为4个部分。第一个部分呢是环境污染调查，第2部分呢是水务调查，第3个部分呢是教堂维修责任调查， 那第4个部分呢是地方政府调查。那其实环境污染调查和水污调查都浅显易懂了，大家都可以了解。那关于教堂维修责任调查什么意思呢？就是说以教堂为单位的与圆心方圆几十里的住户和买家都需要对这个教堂的维修承担一定的责任。也就是说在这个教堂需要维修的时候，那您作为买家或住户的话，很有可能需要支付一笔昂贵的费用来给这个教堂做出维修。那当这个调查报告显示有这个责任的时候怎么办呢？其实也不太要紧。那我们一般呢会建议您购买一定的保险，那这个保险大概几十磅到100磅不等，来覆盖这个可能潜在的巨大风险。那第4个呢就是地方政府调查了。那一般地方政府调查呢就会显示这个楼盘所在的区域的是否有任何的限制令，或者就是在开发商在建造的过程中是否有遵循一定的建筑许可，还有遵守一定的承诺和责任。那接下来我们来了解一下交房所需要的资金。那当然最重要的当然是剩余的房款。那就是说比如说您剩余 90%、80% 的房款，再减去贷款部分的费用，那就是您所需要准备的资金。那另外最大的一个支出就是英国的土地印花税。那英国的土地印花税呢是需要在交房的14天之内去申报及缴纳的。那如果没有按时缴纳的话，是会受到罚款及您没办法注册您的产权。那我们可以来看一下这个表格，那就是土地印花税的一个算法。那您可以看一下，就是前12万5千呢是不收费的，那之后从12万5千开始到25万呢，那这个税费就是 2%， 然后以此类推，再将这些税费再加起来，就得到了最终您需要缴纳印花税的金额。那您可以看一下右边，那是一个印花税的实例。那就是说假设这个房价是100万零5千英镑的话，那这个印花税呢就是按照这个比例全部加起来，那最后的税费呢是44250英镑。那另外需要注意的是，如果这套房产不是您的全球首套房，或者您是海外买家的话，那这个税率呢会有一定的增长，那分别是 3%、2%， 或者甚至 5%， 就是两者加起来的增长。那买家还需要支付的费用呢，包括注册的产权费，那就是您在交房之后去律师帮您注册产权需要缴纳给土地局的一个费用。那您可以看一下这个表格，那也是根据房屋的价格定价收费的。那另外呢还可能产生的费用包括刚刚提到的调查费用，一般是350磅到400磅不等。那在交房当天开始，那您就需要缴纳一定的物业管理费及地租。那购房的律师费呢，一般取决于您是贷款和现金交房可能有所不同。那另外会根据贷款银行的不同的要求，那可能律师费的收费也不一样。那贷款银行的律师，那一般也可能会对买家做出收费。那这个贷款的主要时间节点呢，一般是3到6个月左右。那根据不同的贷款银行，当然也有不同的速度。那放款呢，从您买家收到了贷款邀约书 mortgage offer 之后，到放款的时间点呢，一般也是2周到2个月不等，取决于不同的贷款银行。所以我们一般建议买家提早做好准备。那购房流程中第5步当然是交房了。那在交房当天也是由买卖律师进行，所以买家是不需要本人来到现场的。在交房当天，买方的律师呢会把款项交给卖方的律师、开发商律师。那开发商律师在收到款项之后就会确认交房。那在您收到您的律师通知您的房产正式交房之后，您就可以开始联系开发商，安排验收房产和领取钥匙。那这个步骤呢，您也可以委托中介或朋友去进行，然后还有委托他们帮您出租等等。那交房后呢，您的律师会为您申报土地印花税。那在缴纳一定的税费并收到回执之后，您的律师会为您注册产权。那像英国土地局注册产权一般时长为3到6个月左右。那根据不同的楼盘情况，可能时间点有所不同。 那其实因为疫情的关系，我们也有发现有的买家甚至需要等到12个月以上的时间来等到自己的产权注册完成。那在这个期间呢，不用担心，您可以正常的使用及出租该房产。那我们讲座的第二部分，那就是英国房产的相关的税务简介。那首先第一个是土地印花税，我之前已经详细说明了，所以我就不再重复。那第二个部分呢，就是如果您打算购买房产是出于投资及出租的话，您租金的部分是需要缴纳个人所得税的。那2021年到2022年的年度个人免税额为12570英镑。那这个呢是根据您每个人的收入不同，那缴的税率也不同，分别是 20%、40% 及 45%。那第三个是，如果您要出售这套房产的话，那资本增值的部分也是需要缴纳资本增值税的。那这个2021年到2022年的年度免税额呢为12300英镑。那这个呢是根据收入水平不同，那税率也是不同的，分别是 18% 到 28%。那第四个呢，另外需要注意，就是在英国呢是有遗产税的。那遗产税的税率也是非常高， 40%。那每个人呢有325000的免税额度。那我们这边只是给您做一个简单的介绍，如果您需要一个专业的税务意见，我们建议您咨询专业的税务师。那这个讲座的第三部分，那就是您作为买家需要注意的事项及律师在购房过程中起到的作用。那首先，如果您购买的是期房，那您需要注意目前的交房日期是预估的。当然，在楼盘的建造过程中，越接近尾声，那预估的时间点就越准确。但换句话说，那开发商是有权利提早或延迟交房的。所以我们建议您随时跟您的律师及开发商保持沟通，及时的了解这个房屋建造的进展，以便您能提前准备好资金及款项，还有贷款，那确保在交房当天，那所有事情都是已经准备好的状态。那一般呢，我们建议您留意上合同是否有一个最晚的交房日期条款 Long Stop Dates。那这个条款的话呢，就说明如果开发商在这个日期前能交房，那就不属于违约。那在这个最晚交房日期之后交房，且不是由于一些不可控的因素延迟交房的话，那开发商则属于违约。那您有权撤销合同及收回您之前已经支付的款项。那这个日期呢，一般开发商会给到自己1到3年的缓冲期，也就是说，一般来说，最晚的交房日期会离预估的交房日期有1到3年的时间。当然，这个呢，具体呢还是要取决于不同的合同条款，那有不同的条件及要求。那最后，大家购买房产的时候需要特别注意，这套房产是否有一个外墙的防火审核证书。那由于17年的重大火灾的一个主要原因呢，是因为英国高楼的一个涂层是有易燃的一个问题存在的，所以政府针对这个事情呢，就是做出了相关的规定，要求开发商呢在建造楼层的时候去除所有这些相关的易燃的材料及附层。那我们建议您呢去跟您的律师及开发商确认好您这套购买的房产是否有这个审核证书，是达到一定的防火标准的。那如果没有的话，可能您的贷款或者之后的卖出都会产生问题。那在英国购房中呢，律师的作用主要为2个。那第一个呢，就是反洗钱的核查，就是审核买家的资质，还有就是材料、资金来源的合法性。那所有的房款，除了预定金之外的所有款项，都会通过您的律师的账户，然后再给到开发商律师的账户，然后再给到开发商的。那第二个重要的作用呢，就是对这个楼盘和房屋的材料、房产的信息，还有就是法律文件等等做出审查，那确保这些买家呢都是了解到自己的所有的权利及义务，那及可能产生的风险及需要注意的事项的。那由此可见呢，其实买家在英国购房的话是不需要来到英国本身的，那所有的程序和流程呢都是可以通过电子邮件、视频会议及快递签字文件的方式去进行。 那之后您交房的时候，验收房产、出租及拿钥匙等等的一系列情况，都可以委托朋友或中介进行。那这是我的联系方式。那如果大家以后对英国购房、置业等有相关的法律问题，也欢迎随时联系我。谢谢。
Thank you very much, Sherry. Now we go live in London, where Luca Garrett, Regional Sales Director of Ballymore UK, who lives and breathes Embassy Gardens, will be sharing with us exclusive details on this exciting final last release called the Courtyard Collection. Luca, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and thank you for the kind introduction, Rachel. I'm going to give you a brief overview of Nine Elms as an area, and then go into a bit more detail about Embassy Gardens as a development, and then go on to the latest residential and last residential building at Embassy Gardens as a development. So just to place Embassy Gardens, it's located on the south bank of the River Thames. Obviously, the US Embassy is our main anchor tenant, and all of our residential buildings are built around the US Embassy. We're a short walk across to Westminster and the Houses of Parliament. And Nine Elms as an area is really an extension of the cultural hub, which is the South Bank, which starts in the north with the Tate Modern, includes the National Theatre and the London Eye, and extends all the way down to Battersea Power Station to the south. Obviously, a huge milestone for Nine Elms as an area is the extension of the Northern Line, which is due to open next month in September of this year, which will see 2 new stations. The first time since the early 90s that 2 new stations have opened on the London Underground since the opening of the Jubilee Line. And residents at Embassy Gardens will be able to walk within 2 minutes to Nine Elms Station, which will provide direct links, 4 stops into both the city and also into the West End, into Leicester Square. And then also your 2 stops from both Chelsea and Mayfair on the Victoria Line via Vauxhall as well. Just looking at the connectivity in general, under 40 minutes to every airport in London. You have a multitude of options. You can take obviously the Victoria Line and Northern Line that we've discussed, overground railway in and out of London from Vauxhall Station. A lot of our tenants and owners are now using the Thames Clipper, which is the boat service across the Thames to get both into the City of London and then also all the way across to Canary Wharf. And we're also walking distance into those main areas that we've discussed. So just looking at Nine Elms opportunity area, there's £15 billion worth of investment going into the Nine Elms area. It is the largest regeneration in London. It's larger than the regeneration at King's Cross and Paddington combined. There's going to be over 3 million square feet of office space, which will house 25,000 new employees and workers who will travel to Nine Elms every day to work. We have 2.8 million square feet of retail going into the Nine Elms area. We've also had Apple, which are opening their headquarters, European headquarters later this year. Actually on the Embassy Gardens site, the European headquarters of the publisher Penguin Random House is located, and that houses 1,000 of their employees actually on the site. And there's a huge part of it, as you can see in that image on your top right-hand corner in the screen at the moment, is that there'll be 200 acres of open green space as part of the redevelopment and regeneration of the area, which is largely the mile-long park which extends from Vauxhall all the way down to Battersea Power Station to the south. So this is a view looking at the US Embassy all the way up to Vauxhall Station, and you can see the linear park in the centre there. Off to the right is the phase 2 of Embassy Gardens, which we're discussing today, which benefits from views across to the River Thames, but also to the east to the city. And then you've got far-reaching views all of the way south across the green open space and low-rise development of South London. So just coming on to the Embassy Gardens estate. So the estate is 15 acres in total. We'll be delivering over 500,000 square feet of new office space. There are around 1,500 apartments across the estate. But I think what's really important to note is the amount of retail restaurants and bars that are already open. We're anchored by Waitrose Supermarket, which is located in phase 1 of the development. But in addition to that, we have art galleries, cocktail bars, coffee shops, our award-winning restaurant, Derby's, which opened to a huge amount of success last year as well. And then the level of private amenity is something that's always recognised by buyers and tenants alike across the Embassy Gardens estate. So phase 1 houses an indoor swimming pool, a large gym, screening rooms, business lounges, and then as part of phase 2, you also have a further gym and fitness studio, outdoor sky pool, which is the centrepiece of our development, and then further concierge valet parking services. But as a resident of Embassy Gardens, you're able to use all of that private members club across both phases. So you have access to a multitude of amenities. In the right-hand corner of the picture, there, the building that is highlighted in yellow is the Modern, which is the last residential building at Embassy Gardens, and will be serviced by the concierge and amenity that is within phase 2. So just coming on to the estate, when residents move into the Modern, the estate will be complete apart from one further office building. This is a real photograph of our delivery of the linear park. As you can see, there's a multitude of soft landscaping, open green areas, water that runs all of the way through our estate as well. And you've got the US Embassy Gardens, obviously off to the right-hand part of that picture there. Just coming on to some of the architecture. So this is a view looking down within the building of the Modern. As part of all of the buildings at Embassy Gardens, you have a raised podium level, which offers further access to open green space and is connected by walkways between the buildings. In the top left-hand corner, a real photograph of one of our residents looking out over the River Thames and the US Embassy. And in the bottom left there, you've got the access route across one of those podium gardens into the latest residential building, which is the Modern. So the Modern is 21 floors in total and has all availability of unit types from studio apartments right up to some large 3-bedroom apartments as well. It's a modern take on in terms of interior design, which has been incredibly well received. The building itself obviously benefits from direct views over to the linear park, but also views all of the way south as well, as we touched on. So the Sky Pool is now open to residents. It opened at the beginning of the summer. And as part of the level 10 amenity, there's also a residents-only restaurant and bar area, a sky deck with sun lounges as well. So on a hot sunny day in London, this is a very busy place to be, and it's the hottest ticket in town at the moment. If you just look at the Embassy Gardens social media account, you'll see all of our residents out enjoying this. It's the first pool of its type within a residential building to span 2 buildings. So it interconnects 2 of our residential buildings at Embassy Gardens and is completely free. So as long as you don't suffer from vertigo, it's an incredible place to swim across. Just coming on to the amenity again, to point out all of these spaces are open and operational, from the main concierge, which you can see in the top left-hand corner, to some of the private residence clubs with the Beckett Lounge within phase 1, and then the orangery, which I just touched on, which is on level 10 and connected to the sky pool. And then you've got further meeting rooms, business suites, an example of which you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of that picture there. Again, coming on to the amenities, so as you move into Embassy Gardens, you'll have the benefit of the indoor swimming pool, which has an outdoor jacuzzi area, which you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, a large cinema that can be booked out for private functions, but also plays regular screenings that residents can drop into, access to 2 gyms, one a more traditional gym with lots of aerobic equipment and weights area as a traditional gym, and then a more functional fitness studio where residents can bring in their own personal trainers or also organise one of our personal trainers via the concierge and via the app that all residents will have access to on moving into Embassy Gardens. The centrepiece of the development is the access to open green space. We've seen over the last 12 months alone the sort of main buying rationale for people moving to Embassy Gardens, both as tenants and as owner-occupiers, is that access to open green space. And it really is an oasis within central London. When you're on site, there's a sense of tranquility which runs all of the way to Battersea Park, and then also within the development you have art trails and sculptures that have been placed throughout Embassy Gardens as a whole. So just looking at some of our retail and food and beverage operators that are now open, we've got Linnean, which is a beauty salon, but also a coffee shop and offers a restaurant and dining facility as well. Got the Alchemist Bar, which has recently opened up, Derby's Restaurant, which is in the heart of the development and overlooking the Linear Park, an art gallery, which is due to open at the end of this year, a number of bars, restaurants and coffee shops, as well as a new cycling studio concept, which benefits from outdoor cycling onto the Linear Park, but also has an indoor studio within the development as well. Again, all of these are now open and operational. And then this is just a view of the very soon to be open Nine Elms station, which will be a short 3-minute walk from the bottom of the Modern. You'll be able to access Nine Elms station, which will give you the direct transport links in from the line as well. So this is a huge milestone for Nine Elms as an area, but also you have the benefit of being able to go across to Vauxhall station and jump on the Victoria line as well. So we're really proud of the community that we've created at Embassy Gardens. These are just a few of the pictures that our residents have posted. We have buyers from every nationality across the world, and we're seeing that the majority of the people that live within Embassy Gardens are working either within the West End or in the financial districts as well. So it's a real creative hub. A number of people have started businesses on site using some of those amenity spaces to run their businesses. But moving to Embassy Gardens, you are becoming a part of the ever-growing community. And yeah, we're excited to share the Modern, and I'll hand back over to Rachel, who's going to run through some of the apartments.
Thank you so much, Luca. So we have selected some topics from the Courtyard Collection at the Modern building in Embassy Gardens for you savvy investors. Here is the studio unit on the first floor, which is MB115. The asking price is £675,000. Why we think this unit is a good buy? Because not only is it a good size squarish unit of 457 square feet, but it also boasts an extremely large external patio space of 110 square feet, overlooking the inner courtyard. In this top-down view of the inner courtyard at the Modern, you can see the red arrow which depicts where this unit is located at, and looking out towards this direction onto the green open space. As the inner courtyard is not accessible to the public and is elevated on the first floor above the ground level, residents staying here benefits from privacy as well as can enjoy the tranquil scenery just a stone's throw away from their doorstep. The payment terms for this unit is as such, with a £5,000 reservation fee payable upon booking. A 5% of the purchase price less the reservation fee is due within exchange of contracts. A further 5% is required 6 months down the line, and lastly, a balance of 90% is due upon completion. In terms of the investment potential, this studio unit commands an estimated rent of £520 per week or £27,040 per annum. This effectively translates to an estimated gross yield of 4%. Now, how's that for a good return? Moving on to our second hot pick for a 2-bedroom unit, we have MB 805 with an asking price of just over £1 million. At a generous 804 square feet, this brings the price per square foot to £1,250, which is a very superb value. Not only that, why we picked this particular unit is because at the height of the 8th floor, the balcony is overlooking the amazing greenery, which is the linear park between the modern building and next door neighbor, One Team City. For this unit, this is a regular layout with 2 bedrooms and 2 baths, one being an ensuite and the other containing a bathtub. Wardrobes are also provided within each rooms. We have also illustrated an example of the timelines for the stage payments if you were to book a unit by this month end, August 2021. With the 90% balance due on the second quarter of 2022 when the whole building is completed. Now, it is also a common perception that bigger units equates to a much lower yield. However, for MB 805, the estimate rental is £755 per week or £39,260 per annum. This in turn brings the gross yield to 3.91%. Not that much different from the 4% we saw in our earlier example of the studio unit. So these next few slides are statistics taken from Johns & Co., a lettings agency who have an on-site branch in the Embassy Gardens development. They, as well as Savills letting arm, have an extensive experience with managing brand new apartments before completion. Here we can see the rental growth for Embassy Gardens over the last 5 years, averaging 5.99% year on year. As compared to other developments within Nine Elms area, units at Embassy Gardens commands a 5% rental premium. Since 2016, rental yields increased by 9.05% from an average of 4.09 to 4.51%. Of course, during 2020, we saw a slight dip in rents, but we can expect the yields to continue to increase due to these 3 factors. Firstly, there's a matureness of the area. Secondly, the opening of the tube stations, such as the anticipated Nine Elms station to improve the connectivity. And lastly, the improvement of the facilities, such as the opening of the Sky Pool this year, which contributes to this point. Now let us take a look at the video now. Wow, wasn't that just splendid? Makes me really want to take a dip right now. Okay, let's discuss on the projected rental estimates. For this year and following year of 2022, we expect international students returning to London to study. This in turn will drive up rental prices. For example, the estimate rental for a 1-bed studio unit will be between £420 to £425 per week before completion this year, and increase to £470 to £475 per week by last quarter of 2022 when the development is completed. Similarly, the estimate rental for a 2-bed unit will be between £710 to £875 per week before completion this year, and increase to £785 to £950 per week by last quarter of 2022 when the development is completed. The rental trend increase in rental price is anticipated to be 3 to 6% per annum. Moving on to some rental updates. It is worthwhile to know that 95% of properties let out in the first 7 weeks of completion. When you look at the bar chart here, it reflects the low void periods, which are now on average under 2 weeks. And hopefully, this average void period will readjust itself lower and closer to 3.6 days during pre-COVID times. 2 beds are in the most demand at the moment, renting within 12 days only. There is also a high renewal rate, whereby approximately 83% of tenancies renewing for an average length of 12.4 months. This renewal rate is significantly high as tenants who rent at Embassy Gardens are unable to move into another development that is comparatively better. Which brings me to my next point. Who are the people renting at Embassy Gardens? Regarding the tenant profile, the quality of tenants expected in a typical Ballymore development is higher than other similar developments. The majority of tenants are professionals. They will work in finance or accounting, working for companies such as Goldman Sachs, Citibank, or tech at Facebook and Google. A large proportion are also international students. In addition, we see that there is an increase in professionals who are moving out of prime central London, which is not far from their working place, but can enjoy a more spacious living environment here at Embassy Gardens. These people are not only looking for quality, but also better facilities. Finally, let us now take a look at rental comparables amongst Embassy Gardens and 3 other developments in the nearby vicinity. We can see that the actual starting rentals for the studio, 1 bed and 2 beds at Embassy Gardens are higher than at Riverlight, The Residence, and Keybridge developments. The higher rents are definitely more attractive for an investor's point of view. Don't you agree? So now we've come to the end of our webinar and onto our Q&A section. Please feel free to type any questions you may have in the Q&A chat box below, and all of our panelists are live now. So you can address this question to either Gabby, Cherry, Luca, or myself, and we will be delighted to answer them. Flashing now on screen are also Savills Singapore's contact details if you wish to drop us a line or message through our hotline number or email. Do not forget to also like and follow Savills Singapore's Facebook and LinkedIn by scanning the QR codes that you see on your screen now. Similarly, if you are residing in Malaysia, Savills also invites you to contact our Malaysian team directly. Here are the team members' details. Please like and follow Savills Malaysia's Facebook and LinkedIn account by scanning these QR codes as well. So without further ado, let's start with our very first question. I think we can start off with a question that's addressed to Gabby. So Gabby, this question is, what do you think the additional 2% stamp duty for overseas buyers has affected the London market? Would you care to drop in and comment on that?
Yeah, of course. So it's quite interesting because what we've seen previously is that taxation really has an impact on the London market. So we've seen prices fall as a result. But actually that didn't really happen with this 2% surcharge for international buyers. We did see a bit of a rush in terms of people completing their transactions in March of this year to try and obviously beat that deadline. But actually, I think it hasn't made a huge amount of difference to people buying. They still see the value in the market, so there is plenty of demand still. And actually, when you look comparatively at the relative costs of buying, holding and selling property in London versus other places around the world, including the likes of Singapore, London does actually still remain very competitive to be buying in, even with that extra stamp duty.
Great. So along the same lines, Gabby, do you think that the current stamp duty holiday will be extended?
Unfortunately not, I don't think. So it has been extended slightly. So it was, everything was exempt up until £500,000 up until the end of June. That's now been extended for everything up to £250,000 to the end of September. But I do think after that point, it's likely that the stamp duty holiday will end. It's obviously had a big impact on the market in terms of driving particularly domestic transactions. It's been very, very successful. But obviously, like a lot of other countries, the UK's economy has been impacted by COVID. And I think the government will be very keen to make back some of the losses that they've seen over the last year. If you consider that in a normal year, stamp duty receipts can account for about £8 billion of revenue to the government. And obviously, if they're missing out on that at the moment, they will be keen to make that back. So unfortunately, I don't think that we're likely to see it extended beyond September.
Right. Thank you so much, Gabby. So we have another question from Ms. Liu Fengling. She asked regarding the additional stamp duty, will Singapore property be counted? So let me just take this question and answer it. So unfortunately, yes, the UK government recognizes property ownership anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter if you own a property in Singapore, in somewhere such as in Bangkok or Hong Kong, as long as the property in London is your second property, you will be charged a stamp duty based on the higher tier. But of course, this is upon completion of the property. So sometimes what I can tell my clients is, if you do not want to pay the higher tier, then dispose of your current property before the London property completes. That way you would be subjected to the lower tier. Again, we are not tax advisors. So if you have any more tax related questions, we can also refer you to a professional tax advisor to answer your questions. We have now one question that goes to Cherry. So Cherry, do you think that the UK property investments, can it be made through a company or by individual? And which do you think is better?
To be honest, there are two main aspects to consider, and it's different from person. Firstly, from the ownership and liability perspective, individual buyers will be personally responsible for the property, including any loans, obligations incurred from the property. But if you use a limited company to own a property, there is a limited liability and a separation between individual assets and company assets, so including all the loans and obligations. The second part to consider is the tax aspect. So when you purchase property, you will have to pay SDLT that I have explained earlier, the SDLT payable for individual buyer. So for corporate buyers, if the property purchase price is over 500K, the SDLT rate is a flat rate of 15% of the purchase price, so which is quite a lot. But however, there's a relief where if the company is a rental business and the property will not be letting out to any majority shareholders, directors, or their relatives, the individual buyers' additional rates apply. So from this perspective, if you let out the property and the property is not your first property globally, the SDLT payable will be the same. So during the ownership period, rental income tax rate is from 20% to 45%, depends on your income level, which I have explained earlier in my video. For company buyer, the corporate tax is 19% now, which will be increased to 25% from 2023. So when you sell the property, the capital gain tax is 18% or 28%, as mentioned previously. So for company buyers, the corporate tax again is 19%, which will increase to 25% from 2023. So, but the company buyers will also need to pay a tax called A tax, and the actual annual charge depends on the property value. So when you sell the property, but however, if you are company buyers, when you sell the property, you also have an option to sell the shares of the company. So this is more, this aspect you might benefit from that. So, but for overseas investor, there may be some non-resident landlord scheme to be participated, which can lower the rental income tax. So from what I say, so it mainly depends on the buyer's income level and also your investment portfolio. So if you intend to buy 3 to 4 properties in the UK and your rental income is likely to be high, so corporate tax might be more tax efficient. However, this all depends on your personal circumstance and maybe just to determine case by case.
Thanks, Sherry. So in the same line, Mr. Alex Ng also asked, and I think you answered that in your video. He asked, what will happen when a developer cannot complete the property in the due date? I think earlier on in your slides, you mentioned about the long stop completion dates. So maybe in your experience, since you answered that question in your part, but maybe you can tell us, in your experience, do you ever see this happening? Like, is there any instances where the developers fail to complete by that date that you know of?
In London, it's quite rare, but of course, the higher the reputation developer is, the bigger the developer is, the less likely to be delayed after the long stop days. It's relatively rare, but I would say, I would not say it's impossible to incur these kind of things, but it's quite rare, especially for some developments that part of the phase already completed, so they are on track to complete the next phase, etc.
Yeah, I would think so. So for this development at Embassy Gardens, it is also on track. And this is a joint venture between EcoWorld and Ballymore. So you have two developers developing at this development. So I hope that answers your question. If you are worried about the developers not completing in time, then we would suggest, like what Sherry mentioned, to go for reputable developers that you know have good financial standings, so as to avoid any mitigate any risk that you may have in your overseas property investment. So Elliot also asked this question: if a property is left empty for over a period of time, for example, like a holiday home, is there a law for us to fulfill, as some countries doesn't allow empty units or not being occupied for a certain period? Cherry, what do you have to say about that?
There's no law about that, but it mainly depends on the lease, the regulations when you sign before the contract before completion. I know some management company require you to inform the management company about you are leaving the house for a certain period and appoint an agent to look after your house just in case some emergency happen, or left your keys to the managing agents. But there's no law in relation to this. But I would say for the benefit of the buyers and the property owner, it would be better for you to appoint someone or tell the management company that you are going, the property will be empty for a certain period of time. If I would say like more than a month, 2 months, 3 months, then like someone to take care of your property just in case there's like certain issues incurred.
Yes, so I think in UK, there's no law to prevent you from leaving your property empty. It's just that you will have to pay the council tax during the time. Instead of having a tenant who is renting at your property, they will be the ones that's paying the council tax for you. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, maybe let's go on over to Luca. Luca, so how has the sales been going on for Embassy Gardens?
So yeah, I mean, obviously we work closely with Savills for the sales across Embassy Gardens. It's been the most successful development over the past 12 months. Obviously we've had the launch of the modern, which is just coming up, but even previous to that, we sold over 160 apartments this year alone. So sales have gone incredibly well, and that is, you know, really led by the fact that this development is completing it between September and December of this year. So our final residents will be moving in at the end of this year. And after that date, there won't be another residential building at Embassy Gardens. So that's been the main driver behind it, and also the completion of all of the amenities. Lots of our buyers will do a tour around the whole of the area and typically come back to Embassy Gardens because they see value both in the price point, but also the lifestyle that Embassy Gardens is able to offer.
Right, thanks, Luca. And Mr. Sam Lowe was asking, was the development affected by the recent London floods?
So the recent floods were in relation to the heavy rainfall, and typically the areas that were affected were in East London, where there was sort of a heavy build-up of development. Obviously, you've got a huge amount of landscaping at Embassy Gardens, which limits any runoff and any flooding areas. So no, it wasn't affected by the recent floods at all.
Okay, thanks. So again, this question is for you, Luca. Mr. Wee Meng Tok was asking, the project is located next to the rail track. So how do you mitigate the noise pollution to residents?
Yeah, of course. So It's already set back between us and the railway, and those south-facing units. There's about 30 metres between us and the railway. So there's already a natural divide between that. And then all of our apartments are insulated and double glazed as well. So, we have been taking buyers into the building and you can't hear any noise from the railway once you're within the building.
Yeah, I think we also like to add that the windows are all double glazed. So there's really a significant differentiating factor when you're within the interior of the apartment itself, isn't it? And I have actually some videos on hand to prove that. So let me show you when you can. So for the audience here who are keen to find out more, and just come to our exhibition that we're going to have in 2 weeks' time, and we can have a face-to-face meeting and I can share more on that with you. So let's see if we have any other questions for anybody else. I just do not want to miss out on anybody. So I would like to also take this time to let all the Mandarin-speaking audience know that if you would like to have the development materials in Mandarin, we do have them on hand as well. So just come and contact us after this webinar. So, all right, and I think maybe one more question and we can wrap up for today. So Luca, this one is for you. How is the project's PSF compared to Battersea or the nearby area projects that are around the vicinity?
So the Nine Elms area is bookmarked really by Battersea Power Station to the south, and then you've got the developments towards Vauxhall, which are the Dumont and the Corniche. So Battersea Power Station averages around £1,700 a square foot. And on the other side, you've got the Dumont and the Corniche, which average between £1,500 and £1,600 a square foot. At Embassy Gardens, our prices start from about £1,100 a square foot up to about £1,400 a square foot for those River Thames views across. So again, I think it comes back to that value point, both on price point, but also the level of amenities that Embassy Gardens is able to offer, which has really led to the success that we've seen over the past 12 months.
Thank you very much, Luca. And just from Mr. Joseph Teo, we have just one question that popped up again. It says that what happens if a tenant loses his job? What recourse does the landlord have if the tenants cannot repay the rent? So Mr. Joseph Teo, maybe I can take this question. So at Savills itself, we have to have a lettings management service. So if you do purchase a property through us and have our lettings services in place as well, what we can do is to help you solve all these issues. So there's no worries on that. So if you want to find out more, as usual, we've got an exhibition coming up. So this Singapore private event is happening from the 27th August to 12th September. Let us invite you down. This exhibition is taking place at Marriott Tang Plaza Hotel at Orchard Road, and it is from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily. So you can call or message this number at 9657-0072 or drop us an email at irs@savills.com.sg to secure your private one-to-one meeting now. So hurry as slots are limited, and to avoid disappointment, please book your appointment now. So again, for the questions that we did not manage to answer, do not worry. Just drop us a line or message and we will attend to you. Or better yet, come and meet us face-to-face at our exhibition, and me and my colleagues will be delighted to share more and in detail about the project and any questions you may have on purchasing a UK property. So again, thank you everyone for your time, for attending this event. I would like to also thank Luca, Cherry, as well as Gabby for your time and expertise on this subject. Thank you everyone, and I hope to see you again on our next webinar. Goodbye.